Welcome to News 9 Live, and you are watching On Point with me, and let me begin with the first On Point. Fifth terror attack in Jammu in a month. Terrorist attack army vehicle in Kathua, killing 5 soldiers and injuring another 5. In the last 6 months, 26 terror attacks have taken place in Jammu and Kashmir. If you divide the days with the terror attacks, it is 1 terror attack every week. Terror attacks are up in 2024 more than what has happened in 2023. So what are the reasons for sudden spike in the attack? India will need to quickly find the reason. Is it a ploy to kill elections in Kashmir or dent the idea of Naya Kashmir? Is it a problem of the grid or a problem of technology? Is it a problem of redeployment, or is it a problem that the nation was too much engrossed in political events, not realizing that the enemy is getting ready at the door? In Kathua, 5 Indian Army soldiers were killed in action and 5 injured after terrorists attacked a military convoy in a remote area. The terror attack, the 5th in Jammu, has raised a lot of eyebrows. Injuries have been shifted. Other issues are being taken care of. But the reports are that the sniper gun was also deployed. So why is the army being taken by surprise? Now, why Jammu is the new ground zero? There are a lot of issues which we'll talk about. And in studio, I'm joined by my executive editor, Aditya Rajkol. I'm joined by Lieutenant General D.S. Huda, former General Officer in Commanding Northern Command. I'm also joined by Colonel Nikhil P. Apte, SP Vaid, former DGP Jammu and Kashmir. But I'll straight away go to Aditya first. Aditya, let's frame this conversation. Yeah. What is happening in J&K which is leading to spike in terror attacks?
You know, there are multiple reasons, Karthike, and these reasons need to worry us. I would divide this into the internal, reasons or internal taking a stock of things, and there are external things that are somehow maybe out of control. One is, of course, over the last 5 years, we have seen considerable change in the dynamics in Jammu and Kashmir since the nullification of 370. Kashmir has been choked completely. And that means that the counter-terrorism grid is very strong. The army, the J&K police, the CRPF, the paramilitary, the coordination is very strong. The top commanders of Tanzeems and terror groups have been eliminated completely. So they are shifting gears. A new front is being opened in Jammu, not just in the south of the Pir Panjal, but we are now seeing terror attacks also taking place in newer areas where we haven't relatively seen terror attacks taking place. For instance, the area yesterday in Kathua. In that belt, in that zone, we haven't seen a terror attack taking place, where 5 of our patrolling party members were killed in action. We are also seeing that Hindu belt areas south of the Pir Panjal are being targeted because their intention is to flare up sentiments and have a communal trouble in that area. In the last 1 month alone, we have had 7 terror attacks taking place in Jammu, in which we have 9 civilians and 6 security forces personnel who have been killed. Apart from this, we have to also realize that the OGW network has increased drastically. My information is that the local help is in such massive numbers that for every 5 terrorists, there are 5 OGWs that are helping them out. The hybrid terrorism is not just active in Srinagar, it's active in Jammu, where people from the local population are joining in, conducting a terror attack and then merging with the population.
Okay, you said a couple of things. Hybrid terrorism, OGW, Jammu, you also spoke about the grid. There are 2 other issues which I'll come to, which is redeployment, and the other issue is technology. But let me go across to General Huda. So why is Army commander such tremendous attack by the terrorists, specifically the Indian Army in J&K theatre?
So look, as Aditya has also brought out, there is a tremendous pressure in the Kashmir Valley. And we are seeing, we had a recent encounter also in which 6 terrorists were killed. And so obviously, I think there is a deliberate ploy by the terrorists to widen the geographical scope of terror attacks. So we are seeing infiltration happening through Kathua region. We are seeing areas like Bani Machedi, which was the last attack, which for decades has remained peaceful. We are seeing attacks in Riasi, which was peaceful. The Doda region had been relatively peaceful for a long time. So I think there is a deliberate plan by these terrorist groups, because there was pressure in Kashmir Valley, to try and say, look, terrorism is alive in the Union territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and that the government narrative that everything is peaceful, everything is fine, is not correct. That to me seems to be the main motive. Now, why is the army getting surprised? I know you could ask this question often when there are areas where things have been relatively peaceful for a long time. Sometimes, the local procedures and drills get weakened. The human intelligence, slowly sort of drops off the grid. So this is a big challenge for the army now to sort of reorient itself and look at how areas where there was peace prevailing for many, many decades is now sort of brought back into more sort of operational gear, which will require, resources are limited, so it's not unlimited resources. So we'll have to see how resources have to be now redeployed.
General Huda, is it also because of the redeployment, the tension in the China border, or is it just a narrative in the media? Because if you read the newspapers, this word redeployment finds a place.
No, so we know from Riasi, the Uniform Force Headquarters was moved out in 2020. To be fair, I mean, the government took a decision because Riasi district had been peaceful for a very long time. And obviously, the terrorists have taken advantage of this sort of thinning out that has happened. There was also talk, which actually didn't happen, that in the Jammu region, because everything is peaceful, the army should be moved out, the RR should be moved out, and it should be given to the CRPF. That narrative is no longer there. I think, maybe it's natural that when there is an extended period of peace, I think we tend to feel that everything is now come under control. And that's the advantage that the terrorists have taken.
Okay, fair enough. Let me join former DGP, JNK, SP Batch. Sir, Aditya also raised a point of OGWs multiplying. Do you concur, one? And if it has happened, then why?
There are some of the terrorists from Jammu region, Doda, Udhampur, Rajouri, Poonch, who went across but did not return after situation completely normalized in Jammu region. I think now for last 15 years. I don't remember after 2007. I was IG Jammu from 2004 to 2008. I think 2007-8 onwards, there was accepting few infiltrating bids. There were not any major incident in Jammu region. It was largely peaceful. But some of the terrorists from this area who had gone across did settle there and did not return. And I think their contacts are being used by the deep state of Pakistan, and they have managed to push these foreign terrorists. The fact that they have managed to enter, whether it is LOC area for Rajouri Poonch or the IB sector of Jammu, Kathua, Samba, the infiltration has taken place. All these terrorists who are operating in Rajouri Poonch, those who got killed in Hiranagar, Kathua, were also foreigners. Those three who got neutralized in Doda were foreigners. I don't know who these, the present yesterday incident group, whether they are local or foreigners, but most probably it appears that they are part of the same group which was neutralized in Doda. So most of them are foreigners and they need local support. And for that, I think services of those Jammu-based terrorists who are settled now in Pakistan are being used. Their contacts are there. And I think without local support, it's not possible. See, for a Pakistani to know that Shiv Khodi, where is Shiv Khodi shrine, how the Yatris travel by road, and that area is not covered by ROP. Yesterday's incident you take, The army vehicle is flying on a remote area of Kathua in Bilawar area, which has largely been peaceful. I belong to the district. That district, I think Bilawar area and all these had not seen any terrorist incident for many years.
So basically,
So,
sir, you are saying
yeah.
that the terrorists have changed their tack, they have changed their attention, they have changed the place.
They have changed tactics. In fact, there's a larger plan in shifting terror network to Jammu region, as my other two colleagues were mentioning. See, there is a concerted plan to shift the terror to Jammu region after having suffered losses in Kashmir, because the security grid in Kashmir is very strong and robust, and as a result, Pakistan was losing ground in Kashmir. Now, after this, they tried hybrid type of terrorism in Kashmir. We saw how 3 years back that hybrid terrorism was there in Kashmir Valley, and then what could have been better strategy than come and strike Jammu region, where because of peace. There was a depletion of resources, whether it is RR, whether it is paramilitary forces, our SOG, the VDCs had become almost dysfunctional. So, taking advantage of that, Jammu region was targeted, and you have, compared to Kashmir Valley, Jammu region is more hilly, less connected. The road network in Kashmir
Absolutely
is very
right,
wide.
but absolutely right, sir. But you know, there is one thing which I have noticed, Aditya, and let me just join Colonel Apte in it. If you look at the pattern, it seems that the terrorists have better or some sort of solid tactical intelligence, the way the strikes have happened. If you just take out of 4 strikes per month, in 2 you would say, how did they come to know of this movement? Why were they here at this point of time? It means that the tactical intelligence was available to them. Colonel Apte.
Absolutely, Karthik. Absolutely, Karthik. Thanks for this. They have tactical intelligence, and as other panelists have mentioned, the probability of that is because of the overground workers who are present, and there is some amount of support in that area which is available to the terrorists infiltrating in. Who these people are, where they've come from, whether they were terrorists earlier and now come back, that is a question that remains to be answered. There are 2 other factors that make this area very lucrative. One, of course, is the fact that there is a heightened grid in Rajouri Poonch area, and the fact that there is a mutually agreed ceasefire. So from a Pakistani perspective, carrying out infiltration regularly gives India or the Indian military an excuse to negate the ceasefire and carry out operations in that sector. The third reason, and probably these are the strategic underpinnings of why Jammu and Riasi, Bani Machedi, these areas become important. While increasing the footprint, Pakistan is probably trying to signal that India needs to get back to the talking table. If you recollect a few weeks back or a few months back, there was a steady stream of Pakistani interlocutors and Pakistani, people in power who are saying that we should begin business, we should begin talks. And India has consistently maintained a stoic silence about not engaging in talks till terror subsides. Now, by increasing the footprint, by causing more and more casualties, causing more and more attention to Kashmir, A, you are trying to put down the narrative of everything being normal in Kashmir, and B, you are coaxing India or trying to nudge India that the solution to this problem lies in talks. Not recommended, but probably this is what is happening.
But Aditya, there's one more thing. When we talk about a theatre, we underestimate or we do not take into cognizance that armies, apart from the morale, they also fight on technology. Yes. And if you look at the war, how did the Mughals come in? Because they had the gunpowder. And the Rajputs didn't have that gunpowder. If you look at the cavalries of Europe, what defined the First World War? The tank, what defined the Second World War? It was a different technology and the use of the atomic bomb. So even Kashmir theatre is exposed to different technology. What Stinger was to the Afghanistan theatre completely redefined the imagination of what happened there. So my point is new technology redefining the Kashmir theatre, encrypted apps, better technologies, outside GSM areas, and Am I right to say that making it extremely difficult for Indian Army to pinpoint where these so-called non-listed terrorists?
See, mostly I would say, Karthikeya, that the Indian Army is very much equipped with the latest technology, drones, anything that's possible to have a better counter-terrorism grid. Yes, there is a recalibration that is required. Perhaps the strategy needs to be changed completely in the Jammu region, in the mountainous rugged belt, where it is very difficult to operate given the circumstances, the temperatures, etc. But you know, more than technology, and of course now we know that in these recent months in Jammu, Riyasi, Rajouri, Poonch, the Pakistanis are not using wireless or the conventional means of communication. What they are using is Chinese encrypted apps for communication, and that's why trapping them is essentially difficult. But I would come to the larger point. You know, now that we have discussed the counter-terrorism grid, we've discussed the intelligence failure, we've seen what the New Delhi will or will not do, how our strategy needs to be changed. The larger point, if you ask me, what is the reason for increase in...
Can I ask you one thing?
Yeah.
Is it possible to have a cross-border operation with ceasefire in place? Because a lot of retired generals have written about it. You know,
Yes.
this ceasefire in place is like a double-edged sword.
Yes. You know, ceasefire has been good for the local population on both sides of the border. But largely, if Rawalpindi does not want ceasefire to exist, if it wants to continuously provoke India, and in their larger strategic goals, or should I say Pakistan Army Chief Asif Munir, whose term is about to end, and he wants a second term, and he wants the Pakistani public, the Pakistani government, and the perception management to be held in such a manner that he doesn't want the Pakistanis to see that their western border is erupting, that every day, every single day, the TTP is attacking them, the Pakistani military, and they are facing casualties there. The Pakistan media isn't reporting it as much it should. So there is a perception management at play. The Pakistan Army Chief wants to show that there are casualties happening in Jammu and Kashmir so that he gets a second term. Add to that, there's been a successful Lok Sabha election in which we've seen more than 55% voting in Baramulla, Srinagar and Anantnag.
Absolutely.
We've also seen a successful, till now, perhaps 2 lakh to 3 lakh Amarnath pilgrims have already visited Amarnath. So there is a considerable pressure on the Pakistan Army Chief to have a perception management at play over the next few months, and perhaps we will see an increase in these terror attacks in the coming
So,
months.
General Rudra, I have two questions for you. The first is election the real target? You know, to completely delegitimize the local elections which are supposed to take place? One, it's a political question. And my second question is, do you think ceasefire strategically is behaving like a double-edged sword where Pakistanis can say, well, there's a ceasefire which is in place, and you know, your terrorists are your own homegrown terrorists, we have nothing to do with it? Two questions, sir.
Yeah, so on the first question, not only delegitimize the political narrative that everything is fine, things are peaceful, things are getting back to normal. I mean, that's the kind of narrative that is being targeted. I just hope, this doesn't lead to cancellation of the elections, because we've just had very successful sort of Lok Sabha election. You know, there's a very popular saying that terrorism is theater. I mean, the idea is not so much that you're going to kill so many people or civilians or soldiers. It's targeted more at the general population. That look, terrorism is alive, and we can do this. So that's the whole sort of narrative that is attempted to be spread through carrying out successful villages used to get vacated. Normal life got very disrupted. So it's definitely a big help to the local population. As far as the Indian Army is concerned, I think some points that are often made is that I fear that if terrorist attacks, and particularly infiltration as is happening, continues across the line of control, continues across the international border, the fact that the ceasefire has existed, this could come under tremendous pressure. One more reason I want to point out of the ceasefire is actually, with our superiority on the line of control, we were causing enormous casualties to Pakistani soldiers. And they were not sort of ready to admit it. So it's not only helped the Pakistan civilian population, but it's also helped liabilities. So if the ceasefire breaks down, I think the greater damage that will happen to the Pak army on the other side of the border.
So my next question is to Mr. Ved. So is ceasefire a liability, sir?
I personally feel yes, it is liable. It is to the advantage of Pakistan army. They need troops on the Western Front, and it suits their requirement. And I think we need to think about it. Is ceasefire beneficial? Yes, ceasefire is beneficial to the civilian population on both sides. We have seen how people used to suffer on when shelling used to take place on both sides. Apart, but tactically, I think Pakistan is taking advantage of the ceasefire. Infiltration continues in the same manner in spite of ceasefire. So it is to the advantage of Pakistan. What is the use of ceasefire if infiltration, they continue to push people inside our territory? I think that needs to be discussed at the highest level. There is why focus on Jammu region is to puncture this narrative of peace returning after abolition of Article 370, and also ease pressure both on the Indo-China border in Ladakh and in Kashmir Valley, where grid is very robust, and seek the spread of the forces in Jammu region, which is largely hilly and it absorbs the troops in large numbers. So I think the attempt is because of this strategy of Pakistan deep state.
Okay. Colonel Apte, the same question to you. Do you think the ceasefire is a liability?
Absolutely. It is a liability, and it limits your avenues of retaliation. The fact that there exists a ceasefire does constrain us from employing our forces where they are superior. In fact, I would go a step further and say that not only should we officially or unofficially get over the ceasefire part on the LC, but also probably, inflict a cost on Pakistan in the working boundary, as they call it, that sector. So the area of Jammu, the international boundary around Jammu, which we identify as international boundary, Pakistan still calls it a working boundary. And this is the area which is used to infiltrate these terrorists. So not only should we, make the LC hot, we should also put in some measures or active measures along the international boundary around Jammu region to inflict damage on Pakistan. Of course, this has a constraint on the local civilian population, which stays very close to the IB. But I'm sure the government of the day will find ways and means to mitigate that.
Aditya, you were talking about hybrid warfare. In this part of the conversation, if the hybrid warfare is the future whereby we do not know who the listed or the so-called categorized terrorists are, then how does it become possible, or how is it possible for Indian Army to identify those who can do a particular act of terrorism and then melt back into urban settings like Srinagar and Baramulla? It becomes another Aleppo. It becomes to be fair, another Baghdad, that you can be doctor in morning and you can use your little pistol and drop it and go back to your normal routine.
There are multiple things that need to be done, and I'm pretty sure that our intelligence agencies, our security forces, not just in the Northern Command and Jammu and Kashmir, are doing it, but at the central level also there's a coordination and it's happening. One is the CI grid. The counter-intelligence has to be improved drastically, particularly in Jammu, in south of Pir Panjal, where we are seeing a lot of OGW support, we are seeing a lot of recce that's happening, and open terror attacks and then terrorists almost disappearing. Even as we speak right now, Kartike, there is an encounter that's underway in Doda, and this is an achievement but also concerning that there are terrorists far spread out in these areas of Doda, Rajouri, Poonch, etc. And apart from that, there needs to be a lesson. I am not saying that there needs to be a Balakot or a surgical strike, but there needs to be a response given to Pakistan every time there is a high casualty or a major terror attack that takes place anywhere on Indian soil in Jammu, Kashmir or elsewhere. And that means that costs need to be imposed. Costs need to be imposed on Pakistan every time it dares to inflict injury on the Indian civilians in Jammu and Kashmir or the security forces.
I think General Huda made that point. General Huda made that point that the cost was being imposed on the Pakistani army and Indians were doing it very effectively. And the Pakistan was not trying to admit. I think you just made that point, sir. That when there was no ceasefire in operation, there was a cost. And I think it's the lack of cost which is making the so-called state-sponsored actors more adventurous, sir.
No, see, the army, the Indian army has always maintained the position that, whenever these sort of terror attacks happen, cost must also be imposed on the army. I mean, if you're just only going to kill terrorists, these are basically foot soldiers who are quite expendable. And so the cost must be there to the military, and that was happening through, firing that happened on the line of control. If you recall, in the Pakistan Senate, a question was asked to the army as to how many casualties have you had on the line of control, and they refused to give the answer, saying it's going to affect our morale. So there is a need, I think, as we are combining political, economic pressure, diplomatic pressure on Pakistan, I think we should not rule out, the use of military force. And I think this government has shown that, in the 2016 cross-border strikes and in the Balakot airstrike, that they are willing to use the military option. And if events like this continue, where infiltration happens, casualties happen not only to military soldiers, but also to civilians, like the pilgrims, there certainly must be an option open to the government to use the military.
It's a tricky question, but Mr. Well, I must ask this. Is this the cost which India is paying, where two-front problem has become a one-front problem post Galwan?
Yes, it is. In fact, we have that way. We have two hostile neighbors, and both are working in tandem to weaken India's progress becoming a global power. And I think this is what they are doing. And I think each is complementing the other one. So we have to face this double-edged weapon, double-edged war. And I think India should be prepared for this. I don't have a doubt about our capability.
Colonel Apte, do you think that that's the price? That's the price of the one single border. I would say a single border attention. People would say India has to prepare for a double border action. Now it has all coalesced into one single unified border because two of them are in tandem now.
Absolutely, Karthikeya. We cannot deny the fact that there is a collusive support between collusivity between China and Pakistan. However, I would like to caution here that the kind of activities that we are discussing right now are very much tactical and operational. We are well posed, as our deployment suggests, as our force level suggests, to handle these in isolation. Not to say that there is no collusivity, but at a tactical operational level, what we are faced is Pakistani army using low-cost options to incur damages within India. The answer to that is by incurring and inflicting casualties and a cost on the Pakistani army. A strategic underpinning of China-Pakistan collusivity cannot be negated. However, at this moment, what I feel is required is a strong retaliation, a strong answer, which makes Pakistan army thinks, especially especially around the fact of the things that are going on in Pakistan-occupied J&K, where the locals are protesting occupation by Pakistan army, and the fact that Taliban is putting tremendous pressure on Pakistan army on their western front. So I think what they will listen to is a little bit of a military pressure at the tactical operational level on the LC.
But the tactical and operational level are always, they will need to be meeting a political objective. Aditya, what is restraining the government from doing what they did in 16 and 19?
Well, firstly, I don't think the government wants to do anything in haste. As you remember, Karthikeya, the first major terror attack this year really happened on the sidelines of the swearing-in ceremony when it was happening in Rashtrapati Bhavan.
Absolutely.
9 Hindu pilgrims were in fact killed, and I had no doubt in my mind, as my colleagues would also agree here, that it was a message. It was a message sent by Rawalpindi that we are very much active. The proxy war is not over. You might have done whatever you have over the last few years in Kashmir, but we will do whatever we have to continue this kind of proxy war and kill civilians, and it does not matter who our target really is. So I think the army, the security forces, the intelligence agencies, the paramilitary are strong, ever ready for any kind of threats that are emerging, particularly in the Jammu region. I have been speaking to a lot of senior officers who have been tracking a lot of movement of these terrorists and OGWs, and I think there will be success, just as I said that there's an encounter that's underway in Doda, and there's been a very, very successful operation in Kulgam, where 6 terrorists were killed in matter of less than 24 hours.
Aditya, I think the long and bottom of this conversation, this discussion is that is ceasefire turning out to be a liability? Because ultimately the government of India will need to decide, has ceasefire worked in the interest of the state of Kashmir when they say
were killed in matter.
Ceasefire turning out to be a liability? Because ultimately the government of India will need to decide, has ceasefire worked in the interest of the state of Kashmir when they say it's Naya Kashmir? With ease, without thinking that there might be some terrorist lurking in the corner. That's I'm not talking about a utopia in Kashmir, but the fact is something which was promised and pushed out as a new Kashmir. Now in that context, if the story goes awry, whereby Pakistan is able to weaponize the entire LOC on ceasefire against the Indians and our army, where our soldiers are getting killed, I think it's time for a rethink. Let me play out a couple of bites, because there is no, I don't think Kashmir is bereft of political reactions. That has to be part of our discussion. Let me play them out for you.
देखिए, सबसे बड़ी चीज़ ये है कि टेररिज्म किसी को मदद नहीं करेगी। अगर वो मुल्क जो इनको भेज रहा है, हमारा पड़ोसी, और ये समझता है कि इससे वो यहाँ की तब्दीली लाएगा, वो नहीं होगा, ये फेल हो जाएंगे। आज 5 जवानों ने शहादत दे दी है, 5 सीरियसली अस्पताल में हैं। क्या इससे बॉर्डर बदलेगा? क्या इससे, बल्कि इससे तो मुझे डर ये है कि कहीं हमारे लोगों का वो लावा इतना भर जाए कि हम लोगों को लड़ाई पे आने पड़ा। उनको ये देखना चाहिए, पहले ही वो बर्बाद हो गए हैं, और लड़ाई दोनों मुल्कों के लिए तबाही ही लाएगा, कुछ और नहीं लाएगा। तो इसको बंद करें, मेहरबानी करके इस टेररिज्म को बंद करें।
जो इनकी शहादत है, इनका बलिदान है, ये बेकार नहीं जाएगा, ये जाया नहीं जाएगा। देश इसका जवाब देगा, आतंकवाद का खात्मा होगा। इस दुख की घड़ी में उनके परिवारजनों के साथ आज पूरा देश और पूरा प्रदेश उनके साथ खड़ा है, और हर संभव हम उनके मान सम्मान के लिए, उनका नाम हमेशा स्मरण में रहे। हम अपनी सरकार पहले से भी ये काम करती रही है और निकट भविष्य में भी करेंगे। हर प्रकार से आने वाली पीढ़ियों के स्मरण में इन सभी हमारे वीर बाकरों का नाम अंकित होगा।
अब कल जो कठुआ में हुआ है, इस प्रकार के आतंकी घटनाएं लगातार बढ़ रही हैं, और मुझे आश्चर्य है, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने निर्देश दिया है केंद्र की सरकार को कि सितंबर से पहले जम्मू कश्मीर में विधानसभा के चुनाव कराने हैं। सरकार दावा करती सदन के अंदर, लोकसभा में, राज्यसभा में, कि मामला बहुत बेहतर हो गया है, स्थिति नियंत्रण में है, वहाँ कोई अब गतिविधि नहीं है। लेकिन हमारे नौजवानों को अगर सीमा पार से शहीद लोग कर रहे हैं और उन पर घात लगाकर हमला हो रहा है, जाने जा रही हैं, तो कहीं ना कहीं सरकार को जवाब देना पड़ेगा। हम तो उनकी शहादत को नमन करते हैं, जो फौज की वर्दी पहनकर देश की सरहद पर खड़े होकर हमारी सुरक्षा कर रहे हैं, लेकिन सरकार को तो कुछ करना पड़ेगा ना। इस प्रकार की गतिविधि बढ़ रही है। आप दावा कर रहे हैं कि हम लोगों ने कश्मीर को बिल्कुल स्थिर कर दिया, हम आपको दिक्कत वाली समस्या प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, और ऐसे आतंकवादी घटनाएं अगर हो रही हैं तो ये बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा है। और मुझे लगता है कि इसको हम लोग चाहेंगे सरकार इस पर अपना स्पष्टीकरण दे, जवाब दे और सख्ती से कार्रवाई भी करे।